steps too, so.
The red is record, right? Okay, we're recording.
All right, we will open the Account and Finance Committee meeting of May 25th at 6:45.
Well, I will start, and I'm going to try to hit the capital projects and more of the general stuff. Jennifer, if you have questions about salaries, personnel, benefits, any of those kinds of things. Are we waiting on Sheila? Have you all heard from Sheila or haven't heard? Okay. Budget is balanced. And the total budget, $19,764,835, which is an increase. Well, ladder truck is a big part of it. Yeah, that's a big portion of it. We, if we go down this list, you can see USDA community grants. Jennifer separated this in revenues and by general fund and utility funds, but it's our expectation that we would receive grant and loan funds from USDA. Grant being about $960,520 would be loan money, and then there is a police car also that we would apply for. Neither of these has payments included in this fiscal year. That's just the actual purchase of the vehicle using grant loan split with USDA, which is typically 55% of the purchase price of the truck. Okay. General fund balance use, $70,000, which is this year's current, not decal money, it's apparatus money is the proper term. The county gives us, or has been giving us, I think for 2 years now, $70,000. And this current fiscal year's, not next fiscal year's, but this current fiscal year's money would be put towards the purchase of that vehicle. Because if you do the math, we're almost $70,000 short for the purchase of the vehicle after the grant and the loan. If you remember, there's $40,000 for an accounting system upgrade, which ultimately I think will be over $100,000. But we've set aside $40,000 already this current fiscal year that we would carry over into next. And then the big project that's going to be going on down at South Main Street between 6th Street and 10th Street, really. But the project, the VDOT portion is 6th to 8th Street. And we've put aside $753,000 of local money. There's a $400,000 VDOT grant in addition.
You won't see that expended this year. That'll be after July.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, because I don't think they're going to start until around the 1st of June, so we probably won't see a drawdown. Believe it or not, we signed the contract and gave a notice to proceed, I think in February, but they couldn't get the pipe. So I think the expenditure will be in the next fiscal year. Personal property impact and House Bill 1239. You guys may have watched the news. Several communities are giving I can't say a rebate, but because of the cost of used cars and new cars and them being greatly inflated recently, up to 30% that I've seen, the state has said that localities may or are authorized to give some sort of a relief. We're calling it an equalization. I think is the proper term. When we do real estate, after every 6-year assessment, you've either got to drop your rate because you can't have a windfall of revenues because the values have gone up by $100 million in your particular county. You've got to reduce your rate to equalize within 1.5%. Okay? We're proposing something similar, and we haven't got the methodology exactly the way I think it needs to be because we still have to wait on, I believe, our Commissioner of Revenue to give us some numbers. Okay? But our budget, this budget, shows the revenue flat. We're not proposing.
We're not looking to increase any funds.
We would recommend to council that we would drop the rate at least for 1 year, okay, and then consider it again next year depending on what those values look like. So I think you could be looking at a 25% windfall because of the valuation on personal property, and we're not proposing to receive any windfall. To date, the county is not proposing to give any equalization or rebate. So I think it'll just be the town. We're not, and as being such, I don't want to get in here and start modifying assessed values. I think it'll be messy for 3,000 cars or whatever. It would be more trying to find an appropriate percentage to decrease the rate from 85 cents to perhaps 72 cents or 71 cents. But we'll have that finalized. And I think we need to put it in the ad, in the paper. So I think we do need to probably work on this as quickly as we can, and I think Jennifer's got some dates scheduled to try to hit it in the paper, but I'm not 100% sure we'll have all that finalized, but we can take a shot at it, okay?
But if we don't get it squared away, that is something, could we advertise and appropriate
As long as you're going down.
I'm sure there's a way to advertise and appropriate something, maybe later if we don't have good numbers. I'd hate to cut it too short and then find out, ooh, we've got a problem. But remember, personal property is less than a $100,000 item in our budget. It's still not a huge portion of what we're doing, but yeah, I can ask Tessie and that sort of thing. But when we do the ad, and if it says 85 cents in the ad because we don't have a better figure, everybody please note, we'll announce publicly that the expectation is once we do have that number, that we will come back to council and maybe have another public hearing to do that. But it won't be higher than
I
85.
was about to say, I think as long as we go down, we're fine. If you want to increase
Just make sure we do it right.
public hearing.
And more than anything, we need to know, say it's a 20% increase in vehicle values, does that equate to a 20% increase in rate? Is that, or is it a 17% or a 16% or 5? So we got a little bit of time and energy there that we still need to expend. If we go back to ice storm reimbursement, we still have not been fully reimbursed by the amount of $284,540. Ice storm was in February of 21, if I'm not mistaken. And Jennifer had submitted over $800,000 of reimbursements. We've received 2 payments, and the third is going to come in this following. Now, the expenditures have been made, but the
Let's
third
say,
payment,
so why do we have to show it as a revenue for this year?
because we'll be getting it in, and we've already shown the expenditure. And it balanced the budget. Okay?
So
You-
it does skew your numbers for the next year, to be honest. I mean, it's money that we shouldn't go, all right, well, that's $285,000 we
Well,
can spend.
it'll affect your capital cost, your capital, because one-time monies, yeah. It'll affect that. Use of ARPA appropriation for Army, Jennifer included $100,000 out of that existing funding or the money that will be forthcoming this month for things such as engineering, architecture, soft costs to get us started. Okay, but that's more of a revenue in, revenue out, because that'll be a transfer from ARPA. So there should be an equal expenditure to revenue. $265,000 pilot payment from electric. If anybody doesn't know what that is, in parentheses, it's payment in lieu of tax. So in the event Dominion Power were to own our electric system, those approximately would be what the taxes that a private company would pay to the town for their infrastructure. Okay? I don't know if we're exactly right, and we level the budgets and the funds using that number sum, but this budget proposes a $265,815 pilot payment from the electric fund to the general fund.
Several years ago, when Sam was on, didn't we almost get rid of that, or at least minimize the number?
Well, I can tell you, my first budget here was $750,000.
Yeah.
It was being used at the time
I mean, it was,
to balance the budget. That's what it was. And it wasn't true monies necessarily. It was an increase in revenues and then showing whatever you needed to balance the general fund. You would increase your electric revenues
what
enough
has
that you can make the
payment in lieu
transfer.
of tax been in the past 2 years, roughly? I mean, has it been in the same range?
Jennifer, look it up real quick. It should have the past couple, 3 years in there. But this is a true figure. This is real. Okay, this is
I don't want to just throw an arbitrary.
This is
number.
265 cash, and we're comfortable that we can make that transfer. I'll continue while Jennifer's looking at it. $18,000 in PD equipment grant. We talked last month or last council meeting of a PD cop grant. It's actually a cops grant. I don't know. It's community-oriented policing. We did find out from Sergeant Matthias that it is not 100%, that it was a 75-25 split. Therefore, you see a $58,000 expenditure and only a revenue, if awarded, of $41,660. Okay. VEMA's projections will be released at a later date. VEMA being the Virginia Municipal Electric Association, which is the buying group that we are a partner of, one of 7 communities, and we buy from Dominion Power. Typically, we get a projection in January. We have that. And then we get a final in June. They're not comfortable or confident enough to say that we'll receive that before the 1st of July, as is typical. It's been getting later and later every year. There is some dispute between VEMA and Dominion Power about that true-up. Okay, remember the big true-up we've been collecting? And that true-up has been collected from the residents, okay? And we're gonna end up having to pay it. It's just they're disputing how long. They wanted it in 3 months. And then we're trying to, VEMA who has applied to FERC for relief, and FERC has agreed that Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has agreed to consider the matter, and hopefully something will be determined of what that is. But our expectation is, because we've collected it, we have it, and we'll be able to make that payment whenever the time comes.
You have in this note that residents or citizens, customers, whatever you wanna claim,
Mhm.
will see a reduction of 7.81% over their overall utility bill or just their
Well,
past
I
due?
did-
whoa,
I did
Jennifer's got a,
Based off of their overall, the cost impact, it came out the same. So they're gonna save a little bit because their true up is gonna go away, but their fuel adjustment is going up on this next bill that's going out. But this is what we had advertised last year, and then this is what, we shouldn't have
Look
to
at the
do.
fuel adjustment increase. That's crazy.
fuel just
And
crazy.
so, I just
Wow.
calculated it up, if the customer, if their usage had stayed the same and everything, and the dollar change was still the same,
So let's say $30.
Yep.
That's good.
as long as you just assume,
It's flat.
Correct, that, you use this, I use your bill again, I have yours as a
Yeah,
template, so
there
as
is.
long as you use the same usage last February as with this, they should see at least a 7.4%.
And it says overall invoice right there at the bottom.
Yeah,
And the fuel adjustment, I think, is the wild card.
absolutely.
And if it goes to $10 a gallon for gas or $150 for a barrel of oil, that's probably going to be affected. All right.
That's a problem.
We have worked on, if you can go back real quick, and then we'll just hit that last line. At the very bottom, $200,000 revenue from the new Fort Pickett billing rate. And if you remember, we traded with Fort Pickett. We did some trading. They gave us, or are in the process of giving us 400,000 gallons of treatment capacity at the plant, water plant and wastewater plant. And in exchange, and they're giving us, they're paying a higher rate for sewer. I believe it went to $10.30 per 1,000 gallons, but they're paying a one-for-one bill now. If you remember, if they use 1 million gallons of water, then they get billed for 1 million gallons of sewer. And this $200,000 is the expected increase from one year to the next with the higher sewer revenues. And I hope we get there. I'm a little concerned that we may not make that, but Michael Alder has agreed, and that we can renegotiate every year to see if we can make that 200. But the 200 is the target. We put 200 in, and we put 200 expenditure on there, so it doesn't skew your budget one way or another. You're not having to add or subtract to it. That 200,000 is intended either to pay debt service or actual physical improvements to the water and sewer system, specifically the sewer system at Pickett, on Fort Pickett. And there's been a study that was conducted, and I'm going through the history for Jake's benefit. There was a study conducted by B&B Consultants and Gilmore Environmental several years ago trying to determine where the inflow and infiltration was coming. Where's all the rainwater getting in? And because they were paying, for example, a 1 million gallon water bill, but a 5 million gallon sewer bill. So there was an appreciable amount of groundwater, surface water getting in the system. They did study, and believe it or not, the primary area would be near the airport. They really feel like a lot of that I&I is coming in at the airport as a priority area. We'll get into this, and once we have enough monies to try to figure out what we're going to do we want to use it for debt service and borrow money? Do we want to do it in a different fashion? So we're not close there. I think there's $76,000 have been collected so far this year. We had a great January, and then it's tailed off some, and I think the January was reflective of perhaps some Afghan gifts. Yeah, so we'll see how that number turns out.
Jennifer, do you have that payment in lieu of tax number? I think I may be looking at it, but I don't.
So in FY '20, it was 249,000, and FY '21, it was 401,000. Last year it was 159. This year it's 265, but you are correct. I think it was FY '19, it was down to 99,000.
Yeah.
So how do we go 249, 401?
It's
we're
how we leaven the budget.
Okay. So
If you have an excess of revenue above expenditure in the electric department, we transfer it over. You have a G&A allocation,
it's
and
not
this
about
is used to
how
leaven.
much electricity we're selling. It's strictly if we need to make a balanced budget, we just
Well,
make the.
That affects it.
I did one year calculate up all the assets the electric department has, and then I calculated up what they would be a customer, and I think it was around
90 some?
100, yeah, it was around 9,900. grand. I haven't recalculated it with their new purchases, cause I just take your asset list and do it. But it's around 100 grand. If they were a true customer and I said, Brittany, bill them, then these are their assets, so.
I'm-
Anything above that is kinda,
I'm gonna hit some capital stuff real quick. We may bounce around, then I'm gonna get Jennifer to go over the positions and all that kind of stuff, the personnel stuff. If you go to page number 4, GA allocation, as everybody knows, GA allocation is what we actually pay from our utility departments to reimburse the town for portions of our salaries. There's a percentage that Jennifer applied to each job. For example, me, for example, Dan Martin, who may have a portion of his salary paid through streets and garbage as the public works director. The GA allocation is a direct transfer back to the general fund from our water and sewer and electric to pay for things like utility bills being prepared, utility bills being collected, all those kinds of things. And Jennifer's showing a 4.93% increase in that amount, and that's a transfer from water and sewer. And is it equal between the two? Split down the middle,
I
Jen?
think it's just about, I think it's about a $13,000 increase for both, so.
And so you know, and Eric probably needs to know this, in order to balance the budget, we looked at the salary for the DBI position, and this is for you guys. We've got it in there, and it's full-time, but instead of $50,000, we put it at $40,000 with full benefits.
Which I will be one that will have to advocate for that it will need to be 50, just because you're not gonna find anybody that's worth.
May very well have to go back, and then we gotta
$1,000.
figure it out. And if you want to adjust it before the budget is finalized, then we just need to find a $10,000 cut somewhere else. You got health insurance increases about 11%. I think the council has discussed, and I believe endorsed, the town paying for that increase for the employee. VRS contribution rate increase 39%, and I want to ask Jennifer to tell me why that is, because I really don't know why it went up so much. Or
Well,
if you
they
know.
I think it's the age of your staff. So every about 3 years, they recalculate. Years ago, when I first started, we were putting in less than 5%. We had about a 3.9 contribution rate, and they take it off your pool. And then we adopted the LEOs, and then that did an across-the-board increase, and that got us up to the 5.96, and we've been there for about 3 years. But they sent us the letter, and they take your staff and their age and how much they make, and I've got a huge letter that tries to.
So what's that
explain.
total number then? I mean,
So
obviously, it's
the new rate that the town has to contribute is 8.28%.
You looking for a dollar figure?
yeah, so is that the 19,000?
No, that's in liability. The dollar figure associated with 8.28%, Jennifer would have to go back and
I would have to do. a
pull from each
comparison of
department
last
and
year's
find out what it
VRS
is.
For each department, and then
The liability insurance from Versa is our vehicles and our liability,
Council liability.
council liability. Somebody trips on a sidewalk, roof collapses, lightning strike or whatever. And that was a decrease of 19,000. And we've already renewed. Quite frankly, we signed the documentation after the last meeting. Weatherization fund, we'll have $50,000 from this fiscal year that we have not spent, and we'll transfer that in. Add to that the $50,000 contribution from next fiscal year, and for a total of $105,000. There's a $5,000 additional for administrative costs.
Why did you not spend it? Why did you not spend it?
I didn't do it, one, because we're way covered up in East End, and two, $50,000, you can't do a house with it. The next house that's on schedule to be done, $50,000, the cost of construction,
Oh, that's great.
it ain't gonna happen.
I got a question. Alright, so I wanted to ask if we can increase it, can we put another 50,000 in weatherization?
You can, but it's
We
gonna
didn't-
come
if
out
we
of your
didn't do
electric
that
department.
ditch-
Huh?
If we didn't do that ditch, we could have.
Well, that's not my ditch.
We'll go over that. Can you do it? Sure. I mean,
Yeah,
council can add 50, but it's gonna be another 50 reduction. Then you gotta find that savings in the, electric department somewhere. You can reduce your pilot payment and increase your contribution. There's ways to do it, and I think council just needs to get their head together, and do you wanna spend $100,000? We talked about increasing certain cutoff fees. I think that kinda fell on the rocks there, so, you can do accounting measures and show another $50,000, but, does council wanna spend $100,000 in annual, weatherization? I'm crazy about weatherization. I like working on these houses. I think it's a good thing, but I can tell you the cost of a house
Yeah.
ain't what it used to be, and, doing these kinds of things. But we have $105,000, as an expense,
In my
50,000.
opinion, I think 105,000 is very generous.
Well, that's 2 years though. It's 2 years.
Correct,
Right.
but, well, not technically. You just said that we didn't have the money because we were strapped because of East
We're-
End. So we
right.
used the money over there.
Not weatherization
No,
money.
no,
No. I haven't used the weatherization money at all. We got enough going on that I didn't need to do another one. And
We used our project money. I mean, is what,
no, we haven't used the weatherization. We haven't. We didn't. It'll be segregated.
okay.
I promise. We're not double dipping it. I promise.
No, I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying we've got so many projects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that money is supposedly not used,
Mhm.
but it may not be that much in the account because,
No, by the 1st of July, we'll have the $50,000 sitting there that we can transfer actually in. There'll be actual cash position behind it, okay? And all the houses in East End, so you know, in this phase of East End are 100% paid grant money, yeah. All right. General fund capital. Looks like there's a ladder truck in here somewhere. $1,744,000. We have $115,000 for the fire department roof, and I can't say it's arbitrary because we did get a price from Craftsman Roofing, the folks that put the roof on the library. That was their low cost, which was a sealant for the entire building. A replacement of the roof at the fire station was $360,000.
I've gotten another price for the exact same, and it is a little bit less, not much, but it is less.
It could be, yeah. I've got 115 in there because it's quantifiable. I can show you that a roofing expert that told me it'd be 150,000. If it's much less, then obviously it has to be bid out and all those kinds of things. That'd be good. We still have our fire turnout gear. I think within the past year or two, it went from $20,000 to $25,000, and we have the 25 again. We discussed earlier a police car, $66,000, of which 55% would be paid for by grant. It's our expectation it would be paid for by grant, and the difference would be a loan. But I can tell you, getting a police car, how long is it taking you to get a car
Oh,
or vehicle?
it's extensive. Right now, they closed the window to order. They haven't reopened it yet.
So we may not even get the car in the coming fiscal year, but we have it in the
So-
budget if we did.
You say 66,000, but that's that same type grant where it's half grant, right?
55% would be grant, and the difference would be a
rest is
loan. Right. So there's no payments in the budget, but there is $66,000. Pay off USDA prior year PD cars in an effort, and I want to try to keep this. What we're trying to do is clear the deck because, no offense to your fire truck, but it's going to have a big payment coming. And I don't think it'll be this fiscal year, but in the following fiscal year, we're going to see a several $1,000s a month payment. What I'm trying to do is pay off 3 police cars that we still have outstanding, $65,000, to pay off those 2 police cars because they have higher interest. They're over 3% on the interest. And it's our attempt or our expectation we'd like to pay those off. Okay? And so we've included $65,000 of cash in the general fund to pay off those, and that'll save us having to make payments on it. Okay? Town hall camera upgrade, $6,000. And that's to improve video and audio in the building.
Is that just for in here, or are you talking about security?
No, it'll be in the treasurer's office as well, and maybe even the front lobby of our
So
building.
security.
You're talking
but
about
it's
security,
like
not
this.
recording capability.
No,
She
I
has
can't say that's the
recording
case.
Capability over there, so she can review if somebody says they came in and paid something.
It'll be audio.
I mean, if like you hit record, like you did for this meeting, we're not talking about that. We're talking about.
No, it'll be a recording device in the treasurer's office.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
So if somebody comes to the counter and said, I paid you $20. Right now, we just have the video. Now
Yeah,
you'll be able
I was
to.
wondering if it was the whole YouTube.
Well, that was gonna be one
system
thing
and
that I
all
was gonna say we can strike and add to DBI, right? I mean, because personally, I didn't think we need to upgrade what we just put in here.
Oh, not here. It's primarily over the treasurer's office. Town hall accounting system, we talked a little bit about the $40,000 that we already have, and that would get us started when we're ready to upgrade the accounting system. Okay? Schwartz Tavern roof. Ugh, I've gotten cost estimates from, God, $175,000 to $80,000. That number's probably right in the middle from the estimates that I've received. And I carried architect over there, and it's in bad shape. It needs to be done. The roof needs to be done. Hopefully it's less. We expect it to be less. But 120 will also, there's some water damage on the inside of the building. There's been discussion about doing a blacksmith shop. There's been discussion about putting a wheelchair lift on the side of the building. So 120 is my best guesstimate between a high and low estimate for the roof. And obviously there's gonna be some architectural fees. It is a historic landmark. It's not on the historic register, a little sign out front. So it has certain standards that we have to follow. We have that street sweeper savings. Dan, within the next 3 years, would like to buy another or replace our street sweeper. And if we were to divide it into 3 equal payments, it would be $87,000 each, or 87,000 times 3. In order to balance the budget, we took 37,000 of that out. Okay, so we're expecting to only put $50,000 away in this current fiscal year for the purchase of a street sweeper. And then there's a zero-turn mower included at $10,000 for the street department. We probably need to have lawnmowers in there just about every year to replace some of that stuff between the cemetery and the other things we're doing. VDOT capital projects, Main Street 2B, we talked a little bit about that previously, $1,153,000, and that is set to kick off in June this year. Jennifer went back, I think, and looked at what was left in phase 2 of the East End project, and it came out to, I think it was $465,000 of that amount is drainage, and the residual is the remaining housing money. Okay.
So how much out of our pocket?
At this point, there's no additional, now, you paid a lot of water and sewer,
Correct.
and you're gonna start making payments at some point, but that's actually truly DHCD
The
money.
rest of it's passed through.
Now, how much do we have to match? Well, let's find out what that curb and gutter is gonna be. Yeah, so, but we have 465 of DHCD money. Am I confident that's gonna do it all? Not after the sidewalk project at the schools?
All filled.
I think it's gonna be more. Now, why is 465 our curb and gutter number? Because when we submitted the grant, we figured out what the housing portion would cost. We were eligible for 1.25, and that was just a difference. After the housing came out, that's how much 465 could do. So we gotta figure that one out, during the course of the year, but that is a revenue of 465 of drainage improvements and the differences in housing. I think he talked about some of this stuff with those rates. And, I wanna tell you what's not in the budget. Okay, and then Jennifer can start talking about salaries and benefits and any of the insurance information. And then you can look at each department in the general fund, and you can see increase or decrease. And you can go through those. I don't know if I need to go through every one of them, but that's certainly there for your perusal. 5% raise that is being proposed and in this budget is lit. I mean, that's a good portion of it.
5% across the board.
Across the board, 5%, and with some merits on top of that. We asked if we could do it on 5%, and so we've built this on 5%. But let me tell you what we're not doing, okay? I know this is gonna be unpleasing to some, but I don't have anything in there for the new roll-off garbage cans. That was kind of a if, are we doing, it's not in there. I don't have any new money for private ditches. I don't have anything new in there, okay? Council's voted to spend the 87,000 or thereabouts on this one.
You gotta find it somewhere though.
Well, it's either a transfer from existing funds or ask council to find some more revenue or make certain cuts. But and more revenue obviously means a tax increase, which I'm sure is gonna fall upon hard times.
Yeah, but you can't just make a note in the account. I mean, the town's spending the money. It has to come from somewhere.
Like I said, it can either come from new revenues, it can come from existing funds on hand that we could transfer it in there, or $87,000 worth of cuts in expenditures.
How much was the ditch that was voted upon?
87,000.
Was it awarded yet?
Oh, no. The council voted to do it.
Voted to do
But
it,
no,
so
we've
that's
got
awarded
design and
contract.
engineer and all that gobs of stuff to do.
And we're talking about a long period of time too, and then it's a,
It'll be this budget year. I
yeah,
mean,
but what I'm saying is, see, I think this thing was not, as I've told Philip, the one I know we were working on, Evans. Then all of a sudden, Somerville pops up. See, I don't think that this thing with Somerville came up after, you know. We had, but the main thing that the council was on, you were there, we were always talking about Evans.
Which is on the north side of Northwest, or the west side.
How many meters are in town?
How many meters?
Households. I'm trying to get households, and I figure it's meters.
how many households in town?
2,000-ish?
It's 2,200 was the census number, but you want
No.
household.
That's the population. I think if you took a utility accounts, I think the closest we ever came up with the utility accounts was 2,200 total utility accounts. And that's commercial, industrial, residential,
So
everybody.
it's $40 per person. I mean, per household, for a ditch.
So you're saying it's gonna be expended in FY '23?
Absolutely.
I think so,
we
yeah.
need the
It
expense.
needs to be in there. And, I mean, we're not gonna just blindly go into it and just say we'll find it somewhere. That's not good practice.
I mean, if we do it right now, I would take it out of existing funds. I told you where, out of the water and sewer depreciation fund. That's where we got the cash sitting. So, I think we need to,
So, you said 5%. I thought we had discussed, and you had even mentioned that possibly the raises this year were gonna be pretty minimal.
well, what I did ask the council is to let us build it on 5% because of
Cost of living's
CPI, cost of
crazy,
living's going crazy. And I think the average employee would still be losing money after that.
Gas.
And I think Jennifer actually did call around to some of the other counties, what they were doing. I think Amelia County was proposing 7%, but I think they've had to leaven that off a little bit. But, and you can tell them, Jennifer, what the other communities you had. I obviously noticed Amelia was at 7%.
I had it in my,
Nottaway's doing 5. There you go. There you
So
go.
do we have any numbers on what the actual cost of living increase is? I know that's kind of an arbitrary thing to
I
ask.
think it was last
This
time,
year
it
it
was
is,
like
yeah.
8.6. Chief, didn't we talk about that this morning? No.
I don't think
I think it's
Huh?
8.6 was the
What?
last
so.
cost of living that the Fed took.
We need to get that information detailed to you and
Well,
with the insurance.
Again, and I say it every budget year, you can go back to this exact same date probably every year. I know of several employees that have had issues. It is not across the board, in my opinion. This needs to be selected.
It's entered in there as across the board.
And I understand what you're saying, but the employment and police committee is on the way to get this, because like you say, we want to really give everybody a raise, and then you've had problems with some employees, that's not fair to the other.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have to come up with a way to grade them.
I think Jennifer had given me some numbers at each percentage, and I must admit, I'm not sure, 100% sure.
1% equals about 38,000.
38,000, but was that with benefits or just the actual raise itself?
That was just the actual raises.
There you go.
So what was
Something
it
correct on
stated?
You said 1% equals 39?
8,000. And that's not benefits, that's just base
Should've
salary.
said 5.9 now, obviously.
What else isn't in the budget?
And that 38,000, Eric, is not all in general, that was a cumulative.
Water, sewer.
Water, sewer, and electric, so just keep that in mind if you're trying to find it.
Is there anything in here for the flower beds, memorial flower bed?
Nothing in for the flower beds. We'll have to make that one work. Now, last two things I'll tell you. And I'll let Jennifer do her thing, so we're not here all night. We don't have anything in here for the curb and gutter and sidewalk project down South Main. There's nothing in there for that.
I mean, just like the past
That's been
20
voted on.
years, it'll never go. So.
It's been voted on. Can we do some? We can try as cash comes. And I say that cautiously because the revenues that you see here, I think are pretty darn close. I used to really under revenue. Those have started to come up, and I think the projects that you're seeing are going to increase our revenues, but there is no increase in the budget, in the revenue side, for things like electric sales at VUMAC or at Clay's
But you
or
can't,
anything.
you can't
I don't want to budget them
until you have them.
until I've got them. But I do think you're going to see some additional cash come and be available during the course of the year. But I think it's premature now to sit back and say, we know we're going to see an extra $750,000 in revenue, so we'll budget it and spend it. So it is not included.
So, and this is, and again, I hate to drag ditches into this all the time, but projects such as South Main Street sidewalk is a safety issue
Sure.
that affects the entire town population. A ditch affects one.
But I'm just telling you guys, we have been pretty rich on spending. The thing at the schools, my God, that was half again more than I even expected. We need a year to heal and finish up the project. This South Main project's really our last
Not at
year.
all. I'm just stating the fact that we've got to see the whole broad picture
Sure.
of who can we affect the most population instead of, and, I mean, I'm in Rotary, is it fair to all concerned? That's the first motto in Rotary, is it fair to all concerned? No, it's not fair to spend $87,000 of town money on one person's ditch, not at all.
Well, it's 2 ditches now.
Still on private property.
It's still private property, 2 ditches,
So,
2 people.
I don't,
I tell you guys, there's some things you guys are gonna have to work out. Changing priorities, but the South Main Street curb and gutter has been voted on by council, just like a ditch. They voted to do it. I just don't see where I can squeeze another, without some sort of rate increase, squeeze out another $100,000 or $150,000.
How much is the South Main project?
The last phase of it, I've heard multiple
From
numbers, but,
10th to the first entrance
from
of,
10th to the first entrance of Walmart, I'm expecting about $400,000. But that was 2 years ago, and
it's
everything I bid out
600
recently
now.
650, 700, yeah.
way higher. All right, Jennifer's gonna talk about benefits, salaries, positions, reclassifications.
What page are we on?
Go back to
Page 3.
3.
Just kind of a brief overview of like number of employees and changes and what we have in the salaries. So in administration, in FY22, we had 13 positions. Now we have 4. But we also have 14. We're having one move too. Charlie is gonna move out of the administration department and back to split between water, sewer, and electric. Police, we've got 12, he's got 13 in for FY23. 3 include pay scale increases. That pay scale was adopted years prior. The 2 dispatching positions are in the budget, and we just presented that to Employment and Police, and they did make a recommendation to include them in the budget and also give them the 5%, which I do not have in. So I will have to recalculate on that, and Philip and I may have to come up with some cuts.
The benefits are there to the 5%.
Correct, and Employment and Police just recommended that, so Philip and I will just have to talk on the timing of that. DBI, last year, we were donation only. I think it was around $39,000 a year we would donate. We added the $40,000 position, which causes an increase of $17,060.
Can we change, that's on my notes, can we change that to where it's DBI/economic developer? I mean, this is not strictly a DBI position. This
Is someone gonna build
We're working on it.
okay, so like hours and
Yes.
what the
There's a
job will entail?
description
It's
that-
not gonna
So
be
they'll
similar.
get a job
Yes,
description?
absolutely. Philip and I had a
Correct.
meeting with him last week, but it's not
I don't have
DBI.
anything to hand you, but we
It
did do
is
it.
DBI economic developer. It is,
Okay, yep, I can change that.
and tourism director, I believe, is
Okay.
included. That's why this position, I hate to spend money, but it needs to be a $50,000 position or
Yeah.
more.
But you're covering 3 things.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna have.
So
a decent-
DBI, tourism, and what else did you say?
So if, just go ahead and change it in the advertising so that people aren't like, oh, you're giving DBI an increase. and
Sure, I will. And then you said increase it to 50.
I,
You want Philip and I to find the
I
cuts,
mean,
or
this is
y'all?
gonna- that's up to Jake as well. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
the sole.
no, I think
member.
it needs to be a $50,000 position or else,
You're just gonna get a dud.
yeah.
And that's not our goal with this. Our goal is to bring all businesses in the town under one oversight, I guess you'd say. And
Mhm.
At the end of the day, if you get the right person in there,
It'll
it pays
make-
for itself.
it'll
I mean,
make-
Listen now, okay, you talking about that now, how would that affect the carriage house, about the tours and stuff?
I would assume it was included in that position.
That would be
That would be
included in
part
it?
of the tourism
what
director's
we-
job would be to
Responsible
get.
for making sure it's staffed.
When we were writing the job, when we were meeting with the job description, that was discussed that it would be their job to staff it, whether it be volunteer, intern, whatever it be. So,
Anybody want water? Right.
I'll take one. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys also heard about the bus budget. We've got 17 positions in currently. For FY23, we're gonna have 18, which includes, that one part-time position that Mary had requested. She also has we have 2 performance increases in there, and in the garage, she has one gentleman that she wants to promote to, head mechanic. Not quite sure how to go about that, take it to employment and police, or take it to you guys. It's kind of confusing how we get that done, but, sanitation, we had 8, we've gone down to 7. I think we had one gentleman get reallocated to the street department last year, and just, they never filled it, but now they're really trying to just make it where street and sanitation, laborers cross departments, where they'll cover, garbage in the street. As
Yeah.
y'all know, we added that one full-time position in the garage, so that's why that increase was so big, because last year we only had 2 positions in, and then we hired mid-year.
Is part of that funded by,
Nothing from the garages. Now, the work orders that we do get reimbursed, through the month,
not the position itself, but.
correct, whatever they work on the buses, so that we charge the grant authority based on their work orders. So it just depends on if they worked on the buses a lot, yeah, we might recoup, half his
I
salary.
remember for many years, we had 3 mechanics, and then we went down to 2 mechanics after Jacob Jeter left. And, we needed to have a third mechanic to make it safe. We were experiencing, a lot of times when there was one employee there, which is not a good situation, because the second employee was not able to come to work on a regular basis, so.
Again, this is one of those issues where it was this particular department. I don't feel like across the board raises are,
Well, and I think you guys brought up at the last meeting about getting them certified to work on the fire trucks. And Mary is looking into that, and I do believe the gentleman she would like to promote to the head mechanic, he comes with certain accreditations already, but I told her we might wanna run that by you, cause he had said, oh, these are for emergency it might just be ambulances, I don't know, so we wanted to figure out what Dion needs to be certified to work on it, and so he's willing to he comes fully stacked with all kinds of certificates.
I think the guys, we've been requested by the fire department to start doing more of a daily and weekly check on trucks, fluids, and those kinds of things. I think that Dion needed some assistance with that.
And I think Mary's supposed to be getting with you on that, so we can figure all that out.
I think she's talking to Ben Hoger or something.
Yes,
so we're hiring that extra full-time position.
it's already
is
been
it-
hired.
He's here.
Is it to cover for the one that's not performing?
There, so you know, the,
I mean, I know we're not getting into names or anything.
he had significant health problems and was not able to come to work on a regular basis, to the point where it was becoming problematic. And Randy was unsafe, and so we added a 3rd position, so he would have his 2nd person there. Has it improved? I don't see the leaf slips anywhere near what they were. Much improved.
I just, again, we
And
go back
this-
to
this other
taxpaying dollars, you
position-
don't wanna be dead weight.
Right, this other position, he's not a certified inspector yet. I do believe he's trying to get that. I think right now he's assisting and training with the head mechanic, and he also does the part runs, and I don't know.
And the 3rd position, was added as a safety measure for as much of that.
Electric department, last year we had 6 in, this year we have 7, but that's because that includes that one shared position. Or actually, I think Philip had hired we were doing 2 apprentices, and then we hired that 3rd.
On the
Remember,
electric,
yeah, 'cause it's just-
we added the 3 positions.
So, and they have some step increases in there, and then there's some equalization increases, and that just goes along with what Philip has been requesting about that $1.50 step. And so we just try to anticipate who's gonna test this year, just so I can get the dollar amount in there. They don't always pass both steps, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but, alright, water and sewer, oh, I didn't catch a typo. So last year it was 9, we've gone to 11, and that one shared position, so it's moving Charlie from admin and going back into electric and water and sewer. They have a huge increase in salary costs, and that's because of the salary scale that has been proposed, equalizing, getting everybody in par with the other increases. And then you have, your grant funds, total impact, he talked about the G&A allocation, he talked about DVI.
The, electric department where that's a large, 74,000 as well,
Well, it was also putting that,
half position
yep.
in there.
I got a question.
That half position is about 30 grand.
Okay, now, in this water and sewer department,
Mhm.
alright, y'all gave all them guys a $5 raise or whatever it was. But then you got Andre Hicks down here, you paying him $33.95. Paying Ed Harris $33.95, but you gave him $5, but you didn't give Andre nothing.
Well, so you know, we've been trying to figure out, all right, and Ed, the $5 was proposed by Ed, I had not cut it, Jennifer had not adjusted it. And I think it's comparable to jobs that are in Hopewell or Chesterfield County or that sort of stuff. I think Andre's done a good job, talked with some of the staff, he does not have a commercial driver license. He doesn't have a water and sewer licensure, okay, which is worth something, that's valuable. To give Andre something, I think if you give Ed $5 an hour plus 5%, I would think Andre should be
3%.
rewarded, but maybe not as much because he doesn't have the commercial driver
I
license.
don't like that, but I think he should at least get $3.
It needs to be something
Why
perhaps less
is
because
it
he's not licensed.
that you get, I mean, $5 plus the 5% or whatever it be? I mean, that's a large.
And if you go back, I'm not gonna go to it on the screen just because we're talking about specific
Yeah,
names and
that's
we're in open session. So if you go to the back of your packet, Philip had asked me to provide a list of how the salaries are calculated and everybody's name, and then there's any notes, whether there was a salary negotiation in prior years or they've taken on new duties. Of course, I gave better notes for employees that work in my department, because some of the other ones I'm not. And the other ones that came in as merit is because that's what the department heads had recommended. And so I didn't take it out, and then Philip balanced the budget, and we didn't.
We've
even-
left it unvarnished.
Years prior, we have had to go to this and kind of, I think last year, you either got your merit or the step increase. I don't know that we got it on.
I mean, I don't mind, whichever's greater. I mean, I
Right,
don't
but so
mind.
this was the methodology that we have used in prior years. If you've done something above and beyond your normal position, that got you this merit
Right,
increase, and then you had your 5%
Right.
COLA, or whatever, 3%, whatever, you guys determined, so that's just how it had always been done. But I don't mind, I just need somebody to direct me how you guys want to do it.
I think he should get $3.
We'll look at it, and I'll do the best I can with it. But I agree, Andre's done a good job, but, if the 5 stands for Ed, I think it could be something south of the 5. And justified because of the commercial driver license and the, water and sewer licensure.
I think Philip kind of went over everything else. I mean, I did give you the complete breakdown. You should have GL packets for revenue and expenses that we could go line by line if you needed to. I also have, your discretionary funds stayed at 5,000. I know we had talked, Philip and I had talked, cause you do, donations every year. For the past 2 years, they've been about 10 grand in donations, and that usually comes out of your discretionary. But if you wanna just address that case by case, and we'll appropriate in at the time, just remember, we gotta get the new revenue if we're gonna make donations.
And we're planning to buy a Christmas tree out of your discretionary fund as well.
For the whole square. Chief, how many officers does it take to have 3 on duty?
It takes 12 officers.
To have 3 on duty? How many road officers do we currently have?
Um, 10.
With 1 that we're getting ready to hire through the grant, correct?
We have 10 now on the road, including sergeants. Sam's not on the road and I'm not, so
Correct.
we have 10. We're too short of having 12, which would give us 3 on every shift.
But the 1 you're getting through the grant that we hope to get will take us to 11.
Yes.
So my point, and again, I hate dealing with people's salaries and taking money or positions, whatever. So if we have 3 officers on shift, I'm talking about the dispatch positions. I would much rather us have somebody that has the capability that could be over there if there's 3 on shift, 1 could be filing papers, whatnot. But if something happened, that they have the ability to get in their car with a gun and go help the life safety of Blackstone. So you've answered that we could hire and have 3 on shift if we did not have the dispatchers, and actually be less money from what I see. I believe you're looking at $63,000, that's without benefits. And that's well within a range of having an officer. I'd much rather have an officer that can perform duties throughout that town. Again, this goes back to 2 years ago, we agreed, and we even discussed it with them, that it was given a 2-year window, and then after that, it was then to be, I guess you'd say, terminated.
I think originally, when the agreement was done, we started talking about the armory, that some of some of that money would be transferred towards the armory, for the operations of the armory, but
I'm
You know,
not
it's
saying
a-
take it
it's
out
a
of the
tough
police
night.
department. I'm saying, because I hear from officers every day that it'd be so nice to have 3, because if someone's sick or someone like wants to take off, we don't have to pull in so many extra people on their days off. And I mean, we will have an increased police, we will have to have an increased police presence with our new
I don't
developments
I
coming.
think there's any doubt that if this grant weren't to come through, that we'd come back to you and ask you for a position
absolutely.
mid-year.
Yeah.
And, I do think you're gonna have an additional number of calls. I don't know if crime's gonna go up because of these hotels, I don't think
No.
these are, but I think you're gonna have cars that get locked. I think you're gonna have more people that, need to call
Crime's
for
gonna go
service
up
for
too.
whatever reason, but, so I think it's gonna get busier.
Well, I think crime's gonna go up
Yes,
just
it's
because of the
gonna go
general rule of right now of the state of our economy, gas and.
And not only
And I
that,
don't think attributable to fast seat
No,
limit.
absolutely not, none at all. But I'm just extending an olive branch saying that that money could stay within the department, but we actually have a position that's more duly active, and I guess if you really put it that way. I mean, I understand the thought behind that the 2 help filing and help, you know, they put paperwork in the computer and in the system and stuff like that. But if we had 3 officers on duty, then one of those could be in the office doing it. But if one of our officers needed help all of a sudden, they could also just hop out of the office and go get in the car and go help. Again, I know the other committee has already discussed this, but I felt
Is there a report from the other committee yet, or is that was just before this, wasn't it?
that was just before
Oh, okay.
this, yeah. What was the justification to keep them?
because the chief explained why he needed them, and it was already they had already been budgeted before, it was already in the budget. And that is the reason. Mainly because,
Do we not budget our incoming year by what has been discussed in the past?
what I'm saying is when it got to the police and employment committee, that was already in the budget.
But that's my point. We voted on this council that those positions would not be there.
Yes, and I've been asking for clarification since I started, working on the budget.
I mean,
for those two
But
positions. I
before
have-
anything,
I have
I feel-
my
I
notes.
feel
before
like-
anything could be done.
Hold on.
I do have my notes. Jennifer tries to help me remember what's going in and what's coming out of the budget, for like you said, what's said in prior years. And so we really, but then there's there's not good clarification on when we did the vote, like she
I
had
just,
sent me the
feel like
minutes.
we're gonna have to go through this, and I hate to bring the 2 into this again, because we do it we extend it for 2 years, we extend it for 5 years. Why do we keep, we
Why do
voted
I have
one
it in
time.
there? Why is it in there? I know, Jennifer knows, everybody knows what the agreement was, but with the new council members, I think it's appropriate that they gotta take a look at it. Cause I don't think it's gonna be without controversy.
Oh, yeah, but I understand.
And I think
That's
as we
the reason
saw today,
I have to stand up and somewhat defend what was voted on 2 years ago.
the majority of the council.
But
If
it has
not
to be
the full council.
rescinded anyway, even though we'd have to go back and,
Well, it would be rescinded in essence through the budget is how it would be
Right.
rescinded.
you do it that way, or do you have to rescind it with a vote?
You gotta rescind the vote first.
I don't know
They
how, I
voted
can't
to
remember
terminate
how
after
it was
2
voted,
years.
to be honest. I don't know if it was
I
technically
think
voted
the
on.
vote on the budget and the appropriation, because
Yeah.
all appropriations are subject to
And
council
again,
action.
I respect the chief's desire, and yes, I'm sure there is more paperwork involved nowadays than ever. That's why I've mentioned to Jake before the meeting about the fact of, you know what, we long to try to have 3 on duty, and this is a way to possibly be able to have that.
I'd like to see it get closer to 3 on duty, but if we get this grant mid-year, that's another officer, and then, like you said, it's a 25? What was the split on the grant?
Excuse me?
What was the split on the grant?
75-25
75-25.
for 3 years, and then it's 100%.
Then it's 100% town, yeah.
Yeah, but then 100% town. I mean, if you kept one of your dispatch positions, then that would balance that out, right?
That wouldn't work.
Why not?
You're not gonna get rid of one and leave one. That wouldn't work at all.
Why not?
Well, we did have the opportunity because Louise in
That would
writing
be
had asked
conflict.
to go to a part-time position and reduce her pay to $11. If you guys remember, it may have been police employment we discussed it with, and there was going to be an appreciable amount of savings there, but she has since rescinded that and wanted to continue on as a full-time at $14.77. She'd asked to go to part-time.
No, I think it
Excuse
was
me,
ju-
$11 an hour,
It was just a
Yeah.
pay reduction.
A pay
She
reduction.
still kept the same.
and there was going to be some savings there that would apply to her. But for whatever reason, she's asked to stay at $14.77.
So really, this thing would have to go back to full council, and then we would
No,
have.
I mean, all the budget, everything. I mean, trust me, I've got notes written down. This is not,
Yeah, but what I was saying before this could even be discussed, it would have to go back to full council. Cause you were talking about.
depends on how that, I don't know if it was really an actual vote taken on the fact that,
Yes, it was a vote.
On the
I would
2-year thing? Yeah, it was a vote.
Yes, it was a vote.
Yeah, it was a vote.
It was a vote taken.
I would advocate to follow the vote and then keep one position, but everybody's got to apply. It's the only way to do it fairly. I know you think just keeping one is fair, but I got to do that all the time at work. We get slow. I mean, to keep the books in the right, you gotta make it even.
And I don't know if this needs to be decided tonight.
no,
And I don't think it will be. but
absolutely won't be
I
decided.
think
no.
next steps, if we're looking at where do we go from here, we looked at the calendar, and council continued budget workshop. Jennifer's proposing the 1st of June. Advertise it, and the 1st of June would be a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. The 8th would be a Wednesday as well. Actually because we have to, as we learned, we gotta have a week to advertise. We gotta have a week between the public hearing and the adoption of the budget. So thus the timelines, the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th and 16th, and we picked those dates because the newspaper's date of publication is Wednesdays.
So would you like to do the workshop with the full council? So
Yeah,
you
that's
guys
fine.
can kinda
There are a
hash
few
out-
things I would like to see that you try, not saying that you have to, because you may not be able to, that we try before then to have, obviously, we know the DBI/economic developer.
Put
And
it
Jake,
in the-
you need to come up with some ideas too. I would like to see the ditch in the budget coming from something,
I agree with that.
or coming from somewhere, or taken from something.
Mhm.
In my opinion, it has to be taken from something. The across-the-board raises, I would like to see us go through, and those that we've had issues, they get struck from the across-the-board. I'm sure it's small in the budget scheme. I mean, you're talking about a few $1,000s probably, if you were to actually. What is y'all's opinion on the one or the other when it comes to the merit /5%? Do you do both? Do you keep them? I mean,
This is all new to me. In the private sector, we don't tell anybody what everybody does. This is all a little odd. Everything's based on, I mean, certainly cost of living comes into factor, but it's really more on
You
the
get a merit
merit side.
increase, so you talking $4 or $5, if you get a merit increase, then I don't think you should get a cost of living.
well, that's what my point is. I mean, I
But
don't want to.
that's just me
I want to
saying
take the higher number, obviously,
it, you know.
but I mean, one or the other.
Well, at the same time, I can see where that's the problem with giving cost of living increases across the board. If you have one guy that goes out and gets a $2,
That's why.
gets something that's
yeah.
worth $2, but yet somebody who didn't go out and get that same
My first note
education
is-
has gets a $2 raise, then that's not fair to the person who went out.
Correct. My first note is across the board. I've never, it needs to be